Welcome back to Building from Scratch. Today we are going to upgrade this Tronxy X5SA from the one we put together in our last video to this oversized beast of a printer.
Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of Building from Scratch. If you remember our last video, we did the build on this Tronxy X5SA and showed you how to avoid the mistakes that we made. One thing I didn't mention, and I had a subscriber actually comment about this. When you build this, you do need to have it on a flat surface to make sure that you get everything square. If you don't, forget it. Okay, but now, because we're going to be printing a lot of parts from for the pontoon houseboat, with the drive system, those parts are actually not going to fit on this print. So guess what? We're going to do a giant upgrade on this. And let me go through the parts with you that you're going to need if you decide to do this.
Hi everyone. First, there are some things we are going to need. First thing we need are 4 of these 1 meter extrusions. We would like to thank Zyltech for their donation to this build. If you need anything for your 3D printer, check with Zyltech and see if they have it or if they can get it for you. They have very reasonable prices. We have a link in the descriptions. Put in BFS5 and get 5% off your order. Now these extrusions have 4mm holes but no threads, so we are going to have to tap the holes on the end to 5mm. Next, we need to have 4 1m by 8mm hardened steel rods for the table guides.
Now please pay attention to this. Depending on your 3D printer model or maker will determine the type of lead screws you are going to use. A lot of 3D printers will use a T8x2, 2mm lead screw. Tronxy on the other hand uses a T8x8, 2mm lead screw for the Z-axis. We found these hard to find, and again Zyltech came to our rescue. They not only had the T8x8, 2mm, but they had them in the 1 meter length that we needed for this.
You will need a 600mm 2020 extrusion for the back. By the way, you can get most of these parts at Zyltech. You are going to need 20 5mm screws. I suggest getting hex-headed screws. You are going to need a 5mm tap for the new 2040 side extrusions. Last but not least, get 28 corner braces. These will be needed to stiffen up the whole framework. Oh, I almost forgot. You will need a new filament hose that goes from your feeder to the print head. Sorry, but something went wrong with our camera while taping this part. The first thing you will need to do is to move your heating bed as far down as you can. Cut your filament feeder tube, it is just going to be in the way. Next, tap the holes at the ends of all 4 of your 2040 extrusions to 5mm. Now, starting from the front, hang the front over of the end of a table just enough to get to the screws on the bottom. Remove the 2 timing belt guides. Once you have done that, remove the screws that hold the front, top and bottom rails.
The original holes in these rails are too small for the 5mm screws needed to hold the frame together. We need to drill out the holes for the screws to pass through them.
You might find that you will have to drill out the hole in the outer part of the rail to get the screw head to sit inside the rail.
That being done, it is time to assemble the front frame.
If you got the corner support that I showed you, put 3 of them in each corner. 1 will be on the inside of the corners. The other 2 will go into the side rails later. Now using 4 of your 5mm screw, attach them to 2 of your new 1m 2040 extrusions. Mind that they are facing the same way your old extrusions are facing. This is what your corner should look like when it is assembled. Remove the front vertical side rails from the top and bottom side rails. Do not worry about the heating bed or printer head. The Z-axis lead screws and guide rails will keep it in place. Now turn your printer around so that the back is facing you. You will first want to remove your power supply and all of the leads. Next, remove the X and Y axis motors. Remove the control box and holder that are mounted to the top extrusion. While you are back here, go ahead and remove everything from the extrusion on your left. With the back hanging over the edge of the table, remove the 4 screws for the top and bottom extrusions and remove them. Like you did before, drill out the holes in these extrusions for the 5mm screws. Now again, place in your corner braces and attach the extrusions to the other 2 1m extrusions with the 5mm screws. Do not tighten them down. With the back now formed, take the 600mm 2020 extrusion and place across the frame and mark it to be cut so that it fits between the 2 side extrusions. Cut the extrusion and put 2 of the corner braces on each end as shown here. Now remove the top extrusion from the frame you just made. Slide the 20x20 extrusion about 1/3 of the way down and tighten the L brackets. Now put the top extrusion back. Remove the back 2 vertical extrusions. Again, do not worry about the heater bed and printer head. Loosen the set screw on the top where the lead screw goes in on both sides. As shown here, mount the 2 top side slide rails to your new front and back frames. Loosen the 2 mounting screws for the Z-axis mounting plate. Lift the motors from the bottom extrusion and place them to the side for right now. Take the bottom extrusions and screw them on the bottom of the new framework. Place the new framework on your table and set the Z-axis motors back on the new framework. Lay the heating bed assembly on its side and loosen the set screws on the motor couplers to remove the motors from each side. Now when you got the hardened steel guide rails, you notice that there are no holes on the end and that it is almost impossible to drill them. What we did was to use a grinder and very slightly grind a small part of the edge of one end of each rod just to make them sit and stay on the holes on the motor mounts. At the other end we made a bit more of a point on the end. Now remove the old guide rails from the heating bed and insert the new ones with the pointed ends at the top. We did not record this part, but you need to tap the 4 holes in the top side rails where the guide rails will sit, to 5mm for the holding screws. Using a Dremel, make an indent in the middle of the 4 screws that will go into the top rails to hold the guide rods for the heating bed. Using the guide rail holes on the motor mounts, align them with the holes in the bottom rails and tighten them down. Place your heating bed back in, tighten the 4 holding screws in the top rail for the guide rods. Make sure the screw heads are below the top of the top rails. Remove the old lead screws and cut the news to fit. Now install the new lead screws by first sliding the bottom of the lead screws through the hole in the heating bed. Do not put them into the couplers yet. Now put the top of the leads onto the bearing on the top rails and push it in as far as it will go. At this point you should have enough room to slide the bottom end of the leads into the couplers. Tighten the set screws, but loosen the mounting screw on the top bearings. Move your heating bed to the top to center the bearings and tighten them down. At this point, you will need to put X and Y axis motors on and reinstall the belts. Here you can see how I mounted the power supply to the 20x20 extrusion. Mount the controller box to the top extrusion. Connect the ribbon cable from the power supply to the controller box. Now position the extrusion with the power supply on it so that the ribbon is tight, but not too tight, and the extrusion is level. Now connect all of the wires back to where they should go except the right side Z-axis motor wire. This wire is going to be short and you will need to splice 4 wires to lengthen the connector. Once you have all of your wires connected, install the new filament tube from the print head to the filament extrusion motor. Make sure your tub can be zip tied to the printer head gantry to keep it from flopping around while printing. Now move the heating bed so that one side is around 100 mm from the top. Using a caliper, measure each side making sure one side is at 100 mm. The side that is not at 100 mm, turn the Z-axis motor on that side until it is the same as the other side. Your heating bed is now ready to be calibrated and used. Last but not least, with the bed all of the way at the top, move the heating bed guide wire mount as far down as you can to give it full height motion. One thing we added to this upgrade was that we replaced the top metal bed with a glass one. If you do this, keep in mind that you will also have to buy and replace the sensor on the printer head with one that will see the new bed. Because the ribbon for the control screen will not reach the front, we designed this piece to mount to the right back side vertical and hold the screen. If you would like a copy of the file to print your own, please let us know. We hope you found this video informative and interesting. Please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, stay happy, stay safe and stay healthy.